So this week's guest, I have a world-renowned wreck diver and CCR Liberty instructor, Stephan Senecal. He is, yeah. Say hello, Stephan.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're happy to join. We're happy that you were able to join us. Stephan has joined us on a couple of trips, and we've gone up to his neck of the woods to do some demo dives and demo events. So it's a real good community. So Stephan lives on the Thousand Island region of the St. Lawrence River. He's an active instructor in organizing trips that explore a lot of technical wrecks in the area, including the JB King, and that's right in his backyard, all the way up to the Gunilda in Lake Superior. So it's some really cool diving, a little cold water diving for me here in Florida, but it's a lot of fun, real clear, and like the wrecks are like extremely well preserved too. So
absolutely,
yeah. So tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and kind of your background in diving.
Well, I don't have the same journey as many of other famous divers that you had on your show lately, like Jill Hennert or Becky or Pete Mesley. Those people have started at a young age. I'm the opposite. I've started late doing divings. I started at the age of 37. So before that, I was married at 20 years old. I had my daughter at 21. I had my son at 23. So my plate was pretty full in my 20s. So didn't have time to get interested in anything in diving. And I was born and raised in Montreal on the asphalt. So not much water around there. But at the age of 30-something, my kids were teenage, like 15 and 17. So it was time to think about myself a little bit more. And by this time, I've moved on close to the water line in St. Lawrence River. So I got interested into that, and boom, it hit me. Like, that's it, done.
The drug, right?
Yeah.
You got all the life responsibilities out of the way. All right, now, time to go diving.
Exactly. Yeah, I've started late.
That's, but still, it's we'll get into a little more later, what the kind of the stuff you're doing, but it's like I said, you have a real high quality of diving that you're doing up there. It's some crazy conditions, but great visibility, a lot of deep diving, and then the expeditions, you grow in a great amount of time, and it's like the quality of diving, not so much the quantity. So it's really
right
great.
about that. I mean, when I started in 2000, I just hooked up with a local dive shop. They got me open water certified, and they asked me after I was certified, they asked me, what do you want to do? What's your next step? I says, well, I want to go deep dives on shipwreck.
I want to go diving.
I saw a documentary on the Empress of Ireland that says, I want to dive that shipwreck. Says, oh, we're not teaching this in that dive shop. One more big.
Whoa there, partner.
Yeah, I just opened up the big Yellow Pages phone book at the time, checked for the biggest ad who was advertising technical diving, nitrox, trimate. Says, ooh, that looks cool. I went right there, and from there it was every year I was doing some training. I was doing logging 150 to 175 dives per season. And still at this day, I'm still doing this. And from there, it was only St. Lawrence River and Thousand Island and Great Lakes. I was exposed to that. So it was pretty soon became a passion.
I mean, it's really great. And, you just keep up with being like kind of consistent training, and, you're diving all the time. And so you can really grow really rapidly. I know a lot of people, they'll tell me like, oh, I'm too old to kind of get started, but there's some really cool stuff that I want to do. And it's like, no, it just takes time, and you can build, and it's incremental steps over time, and you can gain so much experience so quickly. So.
Well, it's like you said, it's not the quantity of diving you're doing, it's the quality of it. I mean, when you're doing only one dive per day, because it's all big dives, well, it takes some time to log 100 dives in a season, right? But if you go 150, 175 dives a year, and 95% of them are just technical dive, that means only one dive per day. That's a lot of water time during a season.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to find now when you're doing big dives, you just want to do one a day. You get hungry. It's like, okay, we're done. We're ready for dinner.
it takes so much time just to prepare all the logistic and plan the dives and get the right fills and do the dives, and then you have long decompression to do. And then when you come back to shore, you're pretty much done. I mean, your day is over. Then you clean up the gear and repacking the stuff and think about the next day, right? So
right. Yeah, I mean, the equipment demands alone. Yeah, the maintenance and the servicing and all of that. And how long have you been using? Like, how did you get started in using rebreathers?
well, it came like a natural path that I had to follow because since 2005, I was certified in 2000. I became a dive master pretty fast. I hooked up with all kinds of instructor for a year and a half, teaching at all kinds of people. I became in my work, not my passion, but at work, I was working for Hydro-Québec, which is a public utility, and they had a fatality in 2000. And I was a diver that was working for them, but in the transport branch of the company. And they had the power generation where they had commercial diving activity. And they said, well, we just had a fatality and we need somebody with a diving background. Can you get to the inquiry and see what you can do? Says, okay, I'll do it. So I got hooked into commercial diving, teaching commercial diving, not diving it, but doing the teaching of it, about all the aspect of health and safety around power generation station. So I was a voting member on CSA standard, working with Canadian province, with the Americans, and everything that was commercial diving related. I was working and writing the rules for our provincial power generation stations and making sure that it was safe to go in again. And we put a bunch of stuff on the market so people can be aware of what's going on around power generation, because you had pressure differentials that was not well known at the time. Now it's way better, but back then there was not much documentation about that. So we had to put everything from scratch, doing some try and error. And then finally we got some document that now is downloaded everywhere in the world, and people now know the danger around those kinds of work.
Yeah, that's definitely a common theme with diving. It's just the kind of older days, people will get hurt a lot more, and then you learn, oh, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. Exactly. But then once safety standards, once people figured out that like what works and what's better, it's so much cheaper to just pay for training. And it's much safer to create a safer environment for working divers. I mean, NASA was the same thing. The safety orientation is huge. So,
yeah, like I said, it was my main job. I was a health and safety senior advisor. So it was part of my job. And then extending this to my diving activity was just a small bridge, right? So CCR, I got exposed to CCR after doing a couple of big expeditions on the Empress. And then in the Great Lake. And when you think about deep diving, you have to think about the gas you need to do it. And by that time, I was Trimix certified. And when you get in those remote area, the diving part is the easy part. But refilling tanks and making sure you have all the gas you need, that was a hell of a challenge. So,
yeah, you sent us some pictures of all the logistics of the tanks that you needed in your van and whatnot. Let's see if maybe Matt can pull up some of those pictures on those expeditions. The tank demands on those.
Yeah, it was getting autonomous, right? Self-sufficient. Yeah, that's the back of my old truck.
So this is the back of your old van, yeah? And you even had a fill station in there too, right?
Oh yeah, there was all I need was I had a big cascade of pre-mix, trimix. I had a cascade of oxygen. I had the booster. I had a compressor that I can hook on the left side if you see an extra filter there. So you can see all I need to be self-sufficient. But like I said, it was a lot of hard work doing those expeditions and having to bring compressor on the dive site, bringing cascade of helium, cascade of oxygen, doing refills. Just an example, doing some dives on deep shipwrecks. By 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, diving part was done. But I had like 5 or 6 hours of mixing to be
Time to
ready
fill.
for the next day. So when you're asking me how CCR came into your life, well, it was a freaking nice tool to have back in the day. He says, well, that's the way to go because logistically, it's two different complete worlds. We don't have to compare anything. Yeah, that's open circuit expedition. We had to bring everything on site, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
after
Look at that.
get into CCR, I don't even have pictures of logistic for CCR deep expedition because it takes only 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Everybody brings 2-3 sets of little tanks, 3-liter tanks, and you just need a transfill whip. You need some premix in a 100 cubic foot tank, and you just transfill every night, and you're good for a whole week without doing nothing except
Right.
transfilling. So
I imagine those K bottles,
oh,
what they cost and the helium, you paid for your rebreather right there. Yeah.
exactly. In my case, I know it's not a good thing to say that you buy a rebreather to save on gas.
Mm-hmm.
I got it. But in my case, I can say that in 3 years, for the gas I'm using in a regular season, I've paid for my breather.
Wow.
In 3 seasons.
You're like, it's a numbers game. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's completely different ballgame. I mean, I'm doing the same dive that I was doing in open circuit. I'm still doing the same expedition. But if I compare number with numbers, the expense at the end of the season for breathing gas, after 3 years, my unit was completely even with what it was costing me anyway. So
yeah.
I didn't make any money, but I had the rebreather that now is giving me more water time, gets easier refills on big expedition, and we lose so much less time doing just that.
Yeah, it's a huge tool for you and someone that does the kind of diving that you're doing and the amount of diving. If you're diving, once every 2 months, 3 months, CCR, it's a completely different question, and that's something that every diver has to ask themselves if they want to get into it. You got to see what's the kind of diving that you're doing.
Yeah, that's the first thing that people are asking me. What's in for me if I buy a rebreather? And my question to them is, what kind of diving are you doing? If you're doing in the recreational range, it might be more technical. If you like the new stuff on the market, yes, it can be more fun to dive. Yes, but does it really worth it? No, it's not the right tool for the job you're doing. But if you're asking, doing some deep expedition, doing the Great Lakes, doing the St. Lawrence River, doing deep dives, it's definitely a tool that you need to look at.
So how much was one of those helium K bottles?
Well, I'm afraid to put some number in here because it's changed all the time. But the last time I checked, it was around $600, $700.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. That rebreather will pay for itself. So at that point.
Well, I mean, just one deep dives on the Guinilda, you're looking at anything between $200 and $250 of breathing gas. Not even talking about the charter and the expense to get there. So in the breather, to compare, it's 15, 20 bucks. I mean,
yeah, I'm sorry.
See?
Yeah,
so
here's
just another tool in the toolbox for some specific job that you need to do or one. Yeah.
These are some of the shots from some of your diving on the Guinilda.
Yes, there's multiple photos there. I don't have the names of everybody that took the photos, but I suspect that most of them were from either Terry Irvine, which is a fantastic videographer, Jeff Lindsay, Becky Schott. I've filmed a lot on this. I don't know if Pete Leslie maybe had some couple of pictures, but normally Becky and Pete are signing their picture. But all the other one, not all the time. So over the years, I got a bunch of nice picture. And yes, on those one, I was somewhere in there, but it's not my picture because photography and
it's
not my.
It's a skill, it's a talent, that's for sure. It's so clear, and the condition of the ship looks fantastic.
Absolutely. I mean. Cousteau dove it, and he says it was the best shipwreck he'd ever seen in his whole diving career. And I
Wow.
believe it once you see it. I have 5 expeditions done already on the Guinilda, about between 20 and 25 dives, 22 or 23, I believe. But always a new thing that you've never seen before, always. So it's an amazing shipwreck.
We have so much we can talk about on the shipwrecks that, but so can you tell me a little bit about like kind of the wrecks that you find on the St. Lawrence River and some of
Yeah,
the history of it?
on the St. Lawrence River, people are saying St. Lawrence River, but you need to realize that it goes from Kingston, Ontario, right at the end of Lake
Mhm.
Ontario, and all the way up to the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah,
So
it's
part
huge.
of it is the river, St. Lawrence River, and then it changed for Gulf of St. Lawrence, where it
Hmm.
becomes salty, and then you have tides, and then you have tide range to check. So depending where on St. Lawrence River, you find all kinds of shipwreck because it's a seaway, right? So
Right. Yeah.
all the merchandise were traveling back and forth on that river from the Atlantic Ocean all the way up to the Great Lake. So it's a seaway. So you find anything from the 1800s, two-mast schooner, freighters, steam. We have pretty much everything in the ballpark. We all have it around here somewhere. We have around 210 wrecks that are known today between Kingston and Montreal. That's a lot of shipwreck. They're not
Yeah.
all drivable, but they're on maps.
Yeah. You can pull it up on like a different shipwreck finder, and you can see on the map it just blows up. There's just so many all over,
Yeah,
and you have your local kind of your local park that's right next to you. It's called what is it, Sistine Park?
Centene Park.
Centene Park.
Yeah,
And
Centene Park.
we didn't boat very far, and we found and you took us to a couple of wrecks, and everything's so close right in your backyard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ah, it looks like
Very
Becky's saying
short
hello.
on Guinilda. As far as feeling on CCR is even better to have there. That's Becky. Hi, Becky.
Unless you bring your van. Hey, Becky.
Yeah, it's always nice on the Guinilda because Rossport, Ontario, it's on the Canadian side of Lake Superior. And that village, believe it or not, has 65 people that lives there all year round. 65.
65. Wow.
That's
City
the
life, huh?
whole city. So if you're 5 cars in an expedition, the first one is in the village, but the last one is still on the Highway 17. So it's that small. So you have no dive shop, no bank, no station, no gas station, no nothing. So you have to bring everything.
That's interesting. It's like a different kind of expedition diving. If you go down to the Yucatan, you got to trek into the jungle, and you're far away from any type of villages. Here, you're close, but it's a small town.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a small town, but it has so much to offer. I mean, shipwreck wise,
Hmm.
Terry Irvine did some really interesting finds with the train they found a little bit downstream from the lake. And he had a good history on that. He's published some paper on that. So
Uh,
there's some good finds to do there. And those people are really professional and dedicated. And they do an amazing job in having other people that cannot dive them, but at least you know the history of them. That's all about giving back, right?
Exactly, and it's there's so many interesting stories that have come up from like you say, giving back and what divers have been able to do to help out, because it's a dangerous seaway. Those are dangerous waters, and because people live right on the water, they're so comfortable around it.
Yeah.
You know, they become complacent. Hmm.
Yeah, you become complacent or you take stuff for granted. I mean, here in the Thousand Island, we're on the St. Lawrence River part. So, meaning we have fresh water, it's deep and cold, but we have a lot of current. So, the only concern we have with the current is we have to check the wind. If we have west wind or east wind, it's going to change the bottom flow of the water. I mean, the bottom current is going to be
Hmm.
stronger or lower, you never know. So you have to watch for wind. If you go somewhere else in a little more northeast in the river, now you become in the Gulf. Now, in Gulf, Lawrence, it's still the same river, but it goes bigger, right? Right?
It expands, yeah. It
So
becomes miles wide, yeah.
now you have tides to check. Now you have current, and then you have wind on top of that. So it's not the same planning at all. And in ocean, yes, you have tide, but the body of water is so wide, you don't have the changing condition hour to hour. So in our case,
show the map that you had, the little diagram that you had that kind of dictates how it is on a spot. How much factors can change.
When we're planning dives in some of the area in the, see, I work with books like that.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you direction of the flow. And I've put you some difference hour to hour of what we have to take in consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if you see good.
Yeah, you can see the direction of the currents even change on the hour and the intensity.
See, we dove in that area right there on a shipwreck.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the color and the arrow, it gives you the surface water direction. So from this picture here to this one, you can see it change completely side. So you start with 2-3 knots up to 5 knots of current in one direction, and 1 hour later, it's 2-3 knots, 4 knots of current in the other direction.
Yeah, yep.
That's just the surface water. The bottom water is not the same thing. It's not behaving the same. So it was trial and error. Try to find some window to go dive at that bottom without being too shaky at the bottom and doing your deco in safe water, because 5 knots of current, it's not a good place to be. So you don't want to be there. So we need to find the right perfect timing to go in there. And this is where I got all my experience about the river. It's trial and error.
Mm-hmm. School of hard knocks.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. You go there, it says, nope, not good, not this time. So now you know that current, you have water, the bottom water, and you have the surface water. And at some point, they're synchronized. They're both flowing the same way. The bottom water is always flowing the same way. But the surface water can go that way, it can go that way. When they're synchronized, it gets the bottom faster. But when they're opposite, the bottom water is slowed down by the surface water that runs the opposite side. So then you have calm water at the bottom, and by the time it reverses and come back on the other side, now you have your window. About an hour of diving where the bottom water and surface water are almost not moving before the flow change side. This is where you want to go. So you don't have to do this in our part of the river, but if you go a little northeast, yes, you have to take that in consideration.
Yeah. So, it's an incredibly dynamic, with conditions can change and whatnot. Like I always joke with cave diving. It's like, oh yeah, the caves are going to be pretty stable,
Yeah. And Becky's asking, did you dive the Judge Hart? Yes, we dove it in 3 of the 5 expedition. On our way back, we stop at the Judge Hart. If the wind is not too nasty and the conditions are good, we prepare on the Thursday, and then instead of diving the Guinilde on the Friday, we just hit the road, go back, and on our way back, we just stop at the Judge Hart and we do a dive there, and then we come back home. So yeah, we dove it a couple of times too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So, with a lot of kind of this experience, and you have participated in a couple of unique kind of recoveries of artifacts, and even some, recoveries of people that have passed away and due to accidents and whatnot. Can you talk a little bit about like some of the artifacts that you brought back for some shipwrecks?
Yeah. Around about an hour from Quebec City, if you go northeast and you get into the Gulf of the St. Lawrence, where you get tides and tide range and all that stuff, there were some shipwreck over there that nobody never dove because the current is way too nasty. So we've been asked by a local museum if we could do something about that and see what we could do. So we explored the area and checked if it was diveable. And we had 3 expeditions down there where we've been not paid to do anything, but were sponsored by a local museum who were interested in recovering artifacts on those shipwrecks because nobody dives there. There's no dive shop, no charter, no nothing, because conditions are too nasty. And with the tide chart that we have, we know that we can dive there like 2-3 weekends per summer, per diveable season. And
quick window, yeah.
No, not much. And 2-3 weekends, in every day you have 1 hour window in which you can dive safely. So we did that over 4 summer, and we finally got some nice artifact out of the water and had them polished and everything. And
let's see if Matt can pull up some of the pictures and stuff. And so there you go.
Yeah, that was some artifact that we've pulled out of one of the shipwreck. And after it was all polished and cleaned and everything, on that particular shipwreck, we were lucky enough to have the telegraph. We had the RDF antenna. Yeah, once it's all polished, this is what it looks like. So we had got that. We got the nameplate of the engine with the serial number and all that. And this particular shipwreck, we got just the artifact. And we brought them to surface. It went back to the local museum. And at least people locally can have a little bit of the history of that sinking, which was pretty significant for them, but didn't have anything to talk about it. So when they saw what we're doing, they contacted us and asked us if we could do something, and we said, yeah, we can do something. And we just hit it and did our best to bring back some memories up to surface so people can relate to them and have a little piece of their history back in museum.
Yeah. Like you were saying, they were so happy to have that, because I believe there was one lady that her husband was on the shipwreck.
Not this one. Another shipwreck, which was the other one that was about 2 hours from there. This one was a big freighter. It was 720 feet long. On the first one that you've seen the artifact, there was no fatality. They had time to get off. There was no fatality in this one. They just ran aground, and when the tides just pushed the boat back up, the pump was not sufficient, so it sank. But everybody was out of the vessel. But on the second one, it was 3 fatalities. One of them was recovered, and the 2 other ones never been recovered. So those people never had time to do their closure, never had anything to relate to that foggy night where a collision put one of the boat at the bottom and the other one just went back to the port, and he was able to make it back safely down. But the one that went to the bottom, it was the same thing. No history, no artifact, no story, no nothing, except when it went aground, because it was so long, the lower end of it was in 165, 170 feet of water, but it's cold. It's in a funnel kind of shape of the St. Lawrence.
It's like a fire hose,
hard to dive. So we did our best, and we brought back some artifacts. Same thing. We brought the bell back, and we brought the plaque of the manufacturer in the engine. We brought it back too. So I mean, that one was special because you're mission oriented. You do your stuff. You enjoy diving the shipwreck. You bring stuff. It's going to be in good hand in the local museum. It's got all polished. But what we didn't expect was survivors of the people that got killed in that sinking. There were still some people alive. And the wife of one of the guy who disappeared, Miss Desjardins, she was still alive. And when they heard about that, they wanted to know what was going on because her husband passed away on that shipwreck, right?
Wow.
So when they saw what we brought to the surface, we were put in contact with those families. And when we gave the bell and the plaque back to local museum, we had to do a memorial ceremony at the church, and the church was full because it was the first time since the sinking that people could see some of the artifact and touch that time capsule and have a closure finally. So it was a happy ending, even if it was a fatality and a sad news back in the days. But at least those people could have done their closure nice and easy. And that lady thing. I don't know if Matt should see the picture of it.
Yeah.
Lady with the white vest.
Uh-huh.
Lady, when she saw the bell and heard the story that we did, she told us her story when it happened. And for her, it was like yesterday. So she just grabbed the bell and kissed it like it was her husband.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's a very emotional. Yeah.
Absolutely. I didn't expect that much emotion from a shipwreck mission that we normally do. And we know stuff goes back in the museum, everybody can see it, we shake hands and we go, right? But not on this one. So this one was really particular.
Yeah, that's another a good story of how, because divers are able to go to places and that most people can't go, and especially the water. There's a lot of fear around the water, natural fear, of course, and it's important. And you also participated in another. There was an accident a couple years ago.
Yeah, in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one you mean?
I'm sorry?
The speedboat accident?
Yeah.
This one was in 2018, Labor Day weekend. It was a family going for boat ride, a speedboat, just a regular boat ride. And they've passed another cruiser. And when they hit the first big waves, the boat just capsized and everybody was catapulted out of the boat. And there were 5 in the boat, 3 kids in the back, and father and the girlfriend in the front. And one of the kids was missing. He went right at the bottom. So they've looked for him for a week, 10 days, I believe, with the OPP, the RCMP, military, Canadian and US Coast Guard. Nobody could have found him. It was a small body of water. It was in the river, but a high flow and really deep spot of the river. It's 250 feet deep in that little area. So nobody knew exactly where it happened. And all the OPP and RCMP didn't want to release the video of the accident because one of the dock owner on the shoreline happened to have a camera that was filming on the river 24/7. So it happened that the camera, by accident, just filmed what happened right in front of his house.
Yeah, and just by coincidence caught it, and so, but they were using ROVs and they were looking for days and days, and
yeah, absolutely. Because after the 10 days, that is normally 7 to 10 days, the police just close the file and says we haven't found it. So after that, the family contacted a guy named Tom Crossman from Crossman Consulting. This guy is amazing. You have a heart big like that. I mean, this guy for a living now, because he's retired, is just spending all his time doing either finding shipwrecks on the Great Lakes just for the fun of finding them and then documenting them, or he's going all around the world just to give his time, volunteer his time with his video rig that is equipped with a blue view sonar in front. And he's doing research just to try to find bodies in the water so family can have their closure. So this guy was there for 2 weeks in a row. And a friend of mine just heard about the accident and says, I don't know anyone better than you that know the area. Can you go and help those guys and guide them with the ROV in the river? So I spent 2 weeks in the boat with Tom. This is where I happened to meet with him. And for 2 weeks, couldn't find anything. We're doing passes and passes and passes. And we had about 75 to 100 divers that were volunteers.
Wow, that's so many. Wow.
And it's a small area, like I said.
Yeah.
But you need to take care of what's their level of certification because it goes from 30 feet.
And you got to keep everybody safe and everybody on track. Yep.
So I've managed all those people for 2 week time in and out. I was not the only one, but I was participating as much as I could. Yeah. And after I believe it was the search completely was 48 days. And in the last week of the 48 days, we finally put our hands on the videos of the accident. So now we're able to locate exactly where the kid was thrown out of the boat. So we put an anchor right there. And I went to the bottom and I brought with me 5 styrofoam cup, the white styrofoam cup. I brought 5 of them and told Tom that was in the boat, says, I'll go at the bottom right there, and I'll just let go 1 styrofoam cup every 5 seconds. When they hit the surface, it's going to draw a white line. Just go in that line with the ROV and just drift in. First pass, he saw the body at the bottom. So the next day was the recovery. So it was full of people on the water. Everybody was there to see what was going on. So I just did my mission, went following the ROV, following the tether all the way down to the ROV, and then just set up my stuff with the lights and everything, put the body in the bag, just closed everything down, shoot it to the surface. But it was 22 minutes at 228 feet or 30 feet. So I had an hour and a half of drifting.
How deep was that? 220?
230, 228, 230.
Yeah, to be working like that, that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, but after that, it was a really windy, nasty day. So it was an hour and a half of deco, and I drifted like 3 or 4 miles downstream. And when I surfaced, where the hell am I? I didn't recognize the spot because I never drifted that far before. But
so you're in Minnesota.
Sure, everybody was not.
That's an incredible story, and it's another thing that the equipment can help us too with that.
Exactly. I mean, it was a fatality, but for the family, it was a happy ending because we're in October. I mean, I think it was 18 or 17 or 18 of October, so it was late in the season. And I remember the mom grabbing me by the arm and says, "I don't want my kid to spend the whole winter under the ice." So I'll do my best, but don't worry too much about that.
No pressure, Stephan. No pressure.
No, not at all. So we found him. We brought him back to his family. And for family, it was a happy ending. It was a nice closure. At least they got the body back and they were happy. So again, it was very emotional. But I mean, skills and good tools and trainings and all that, you never know where it's going to bring you, right?
Yeah, and how you can help, and so.
Yeah, I see Ed Sorensen doing the same stuff in cave, and it's amazing work he's doing. I mean, the guy is literally putting his life on the line just to save people that are sometimes happy ending. They're still alive, but sometimes they're gone, and they have to be bring back to surface so family can do their closure, right? So a very, very professional job he's doing, and he's one of my role models for that.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and it's I think but we showed a video last week where Becky had they recreated one of the recoveries of it, and it's so good, and it's important to share the it's not a because it was a rescue, it was a happy ending, but it's good to share because people associate cave diving, technical diving with so many negative connotations. It's like, you're going to jump in the black, scary water and you're going to die. It's like, no, not, it's
all about training, right? It's all about training. I've heard Becky last week said when some people ask her the question, do you jump in the Great Lake and do some big dives? Says, no, beginning of the season, we're all the same. We have butterfly in the stomach. We have to go back in the water, do the basic skills, then do some workout dives and work until we get the right situation. And then when you do the big dives, it's like natural because you did your training and you move up. And then when you do it, you're ready for it.
Exactly.
More risky business in technical diving than recreational. But this is why you need to have more training and have a better attitude and discipline and make sure you don't cut corners anywhere because it's your life on the line.
Right. Yeah. It's the complacency of it. There's so many parts of of diving. There's the seriousness of it. We train and we use good equipment and we take care of our equipment so that we can enjoy the diving. And, diving brings us so much sense of community and, we get to travel to so many cool and exotic places. I know you get to come down here to Florida in the wintertime, right?
Yeah, normally I spend a couple of months in Florida. Like I try to be there at least anything between 1 to 3 months. So
That's a good trip. Yeah.
I go to the Keys a lot, Key Largo with Horizon Diver and Dan Dawson, good friend of mine too.
Oh yeah, good crew down there.
Yeah, good crew down there. Nice shipwrecks over there. Warm water. Yeah, that's the coconut of destiny when we're diving the Queen of Nassau or the Northern Light, or they have different ways of calculating current and all that. So that's really fun. There's no mooring over there. So you just go with the current. How much time do you want upstream? You jump in the water. It's blue descent, and then you find shipwreck. It's something else, right? But yeah,
Oh yeah.
Queen of Nassau with the nice.
Yeah, that's a great shot of you on the Queen of Nassau.
Yeah, that's a picture from Jeff Knapp. Yeah, nice picture too. They have really nice, cool diving in there. In wintertime, I try to do a lot of cave diving because we don't have any caves around here. So I hang out in the Florida caves and Mexican caves and try to do as much as possible during that period of time. That's my rest time. That's my fun
Right.
time. And that's the only way I can do cave diving. We don't have any.
Yeah, the Florida Springs, I tell everybody, it's like, Florida's so fantastic with so much different varieties of diving. You have like these hammerheads here in the Keys, and then you have the caves and springs in North Florida. And, you can find caves throughout the world, but like it's such a dense concentration of really beautiful surface springs here. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is close, right?
Right, yeah.
An hour of traveling, you can do like 10, 15 different springs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Matt was showing the Hammerhead, School of Hammerhead on the Queen of Nassau. That's pretty much the only place in Florida you can see pretty much all the time if you're lucky. School of Hammerhead, when you're doing your deco around 100 feet, you just look around, there's nothing, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by a school.
Oh, yeah.
And you hear everybody in their loop, ooh, ooh, ooh,
Yeah.
ooh. So you see it's Hammerhead, and then people go crazy for 2, 3, 5 minutes, and then gone, nothing. So how cool is that? We don't have that.
It's so funny. Yeah, I always get really excited on the loop, and I'll just start screaming and yelling. And then the fish are like, "Oh, huh."
What's going on?
Yeah, it's pretty fun. So like, let's see, we get off on so many different tangents and stuff. Tell us a little bit. Is there a lot of winter diving in the St. Lawrence?
We have some ice diving going on in wintertime for brave soul. I mean, I know if I talk to you guys about 32, 33 water degree temperature, you say you're crazy because I know you're putting your dry suit when it's about 65. But
and our heated vests here in the caves, whatever.
No, but this is what we're doing in the winter. We have some quarry that froze all over. This one is Morrison Quarry near Ottawa. And we have dive shops over there. EPSO is doing a lot of scuba diving in winter over there.
Oh, yeah, EPSO and Dominic, yeah.
So this is one way of doing some training and stay sharp on your skills. It's not deep dives or anything, but it's, again, specific training for specific site like that. It keeps us active. It keeps us used to cold water. And you don't want to get into complacence or decent and beginning to start with how did they call that at NASA? You worked there. They call that normalization of deviance. Right?
Normalization of deviance. Yep. It's like, oh, everything went well this time. Everything went well, and so it's like, so we can make the same mistakes, and then everything went well the second time. So
so you get deeper and further and deeper, and then all of a sudden you hit a wall, but you're not trained for it. Now what?
Right.
So
I have a lot of respect for the cold water diving because it's just everything is just so much more difficult. Everything is so much more work. Using your hands, working. Yep, exactly. Once you lose your hands, they turn to jello, and you're just like, you can't do anything.
Yeah, and you need to keep your muscular memory working because if you don't have that muscular memory, nothing you can do if like we say in French too, shit hits the fan, right? You don't want to have your 5 fingers together and not knowing what to do or not feeling what you're doing. So you need to get ready for all kinds of situations.
I'm starting to think of diving as more of an endurance sport, because like you have to really kind of like in lines with like mountaineering and whatnot, you have to endure, tough conditions, and so we're so dependent on our equipment.
Absolutely. That's why here we have the park you were talking about, Centene Park, that we have here in Brockville. It's about minutes from my home. This is why I moved in here when I retired in 2015. I built my house right next to the park. So in that park, the main mission, because we're under SOS. People are asking what's SOS. It's Save Ontario Shipwreck. Main mission of that is to protect the shipwreck and the maritime history underwater. We have a lot of 1800s shipwreck that are deteriorating fast because of the current. So we need to protect them. So one thing we do as SOS is making sure that no mooring line is attached to any of those shipwrecks. So we have concrete blocks on the side, upstream or downstream from the shipwreck, so nothing is attached to the shipwreck. Then train people to go on those shipwrecks, like the one you've seen when you were here, the Robert Gaskin right in front of Centene Park, right? It's an 1800 shipwreck. It's all wooden shipwreck. So it's fragile. So we were talking a couple of years back what we could do to make sure that people that go dive on the Robert Gaskin don't hold on the shipwreck to maintain their buoyancy. So this is where the idea of a training park popped up, and we make it happen. So it's a sculpture park. It's called Centene Memorial Dive Park. And in that park, we have around 45 concrete sculpture.
Wow, that many.
5 feet high, like real life-size sculpture. So we have training platform that we've put in the water, like 12 by 12, 16 by 16 platform in 20 feet, 25 feet of water. So people go in there, they're not in the mud. They can train on the platform. They can have a little tour because in that area, we have some eddy current. So we have almost no current. So they can.
Right. It's a great training area. Yeah. That's where we were doing our demos.
Yeah. They have something to see all around the park. They can look for the sculpture. They have a nice little path that they can follow and see all the sculpture. So instead of just swimming in the mud, they have something to see, right? So after that, when they go diving the Robert Gaskin with some local charters, they're better at their buoyancy. They're better at orienting themselves in the water. They're better at drift diving. They get used to it, so they don't touch the wreck anymore. They can manage their own stuff just by hovering over the wreck instead of holding and fighting the current. That's all about training. That's why the park is over there.
It's a great training site. We were there, I think it was just after 4th of July, and it was just so many people, but it's still such a big area, and there's all the different statues. There's the hand, right?
Big hand like that. 9 feet high. A local artist made that, Dave Sheridan. That happened. So it's pretty amazing when you see those things in the water. It says, "Oh, look at that!" And it was the first one in Canada, underwater sculpture park. So training site for us because people train with reeling instead of going on the old shipwreck and tie
up to a finger.
Yeah, they can go in the park and tie on the sculpture. We have big signage that are made of aluminum. They can tie on those and practice their reeling technique. So when they go on the shipwreck and they want to go inside and you have a wreck class or whatever, they're better at holding and going on with their reeling.
It's so valuable. Now, so that's the SOS kind of, they kind of sponsored a lot of that. Or do they do anything anywhere else, or?
Yeah, in the province of Ontario, SOS Save Ontario Shipwreck, we have a corporate. Corporate is at the provincial level, and then we have chapter in all Ontario region. And we're the Thousand Island chapter, and we're the most active chapter of all because we have a big body of water.
And they got you too, right?
Yeah, it's big, it's huge. We have the park. We have some program going on. So our mission in our chapter is to take care of all the moorings, all the concrete block at the bottom, make sure the lines are safe for charter.
That's a lot of work.
And then we have the park. We have to maintain the park because when we have a problem with something, we bring it to the city. And because we're a nonprofit, we have to find ways to finance what we're doing. So we have a token program. So people buy a token. It's not mandatory, but they can buy a token to support our activity. And with that money, we share 50-50 with the city. So when we have a problem, we bring the solution, and normally we finance the solution. So everybody's happy. Diver has a safe place to dive. Charter boat has nice mooring line to hook onto.
Right.
Shipwrecks are preserved. So that's our main mission. This is what I'm doing most of the summer when I'm not training or giving training.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's you guys have great T-shirts too. I know I picked up one when I was there.
Yeah, you have to have a picture of it. We've put a pirate map behind.
Yeah, the pirate map of all the sculptures. Yeah.
It's all the sculptures. So when dive masters are doing their briefing, when they bring new people to the park,
Turn their shirt around
and show some highlights of the park on their back of the T-shirt, and that was the old idea behind it. Yeah.
How fun. So so a little bit back on the equipment. The Liberty rebreather is not your only rebreather. I think you also used to teach on a Prism as well.
Yes.
But the Liberty is your primary unit. Why do you like to use the Liberty as your primary unit?
Well, it all came back in doing some expedition in the Great Lake and diving in Florida and remote area. I've checked for all the features on all CCR companies for a couple of years before stopping my choice on one unit. I was looking for, do they give technician class? Because for me, it's either you train as a diver, but I need to train as a technician as well, because this is how I am. I need to have my own stuff and do my own maintenance. So when I got back 1 year from Beneath the Sea show, I was pretty fixed on the Hollis Prism. So I went and bought 2 units, one for me, one for my wife, and we started diving on the Hollis Prism. But it happened a couple of times where I broke the unit. I mean, you bashing them in charter boats and break something, and I had to fix it in the field. And it was not that easy because you need to open up the head of the unit. Now you need to reseal it. You don't have anything to pressure test it. And you need to put cables on it, change your wires thing. So I says, well, that's not very practical. The unit was diving great, but repairing them in the field was not that good. So then I was looking at the Liberty. I was checking the evolution of the unit, and everything is plug and play. There's nothing that is capsuled somewhere that you cannot work with. No problem. I arrived in that layer of electronics. So it was all that I loved about unit. But at the same time, if you break a handset, if you break a HUD, if you sit on the cable, you just unplug it, plug the other one, reboot, go diving.
That's it, yeah.
For me, the robustness of the unit and the fine quality of the building of the unit, this is what got me. And I just went and swapped, and now I'm only diving the Liberty, side mount and back mount.
Yeah. It's I mean that's one of the reasons why I know I purchased mine, and was that the robustness of it and that plug and play. It's I always think it's really cool whenever you come and visit us here in Tampa. You'll go in the back and you pick out like, oh, here's another parts of my Save-A-Dive kit. You'll buy an annual service kit, and that's just your Save-A-Dive. And it's like, oh, why doesn't everybody do that? It's an expensive Save-A-Dive kit, but it's so effective. Like we're now in Canada. It becomes better and better. We are now dive shops in Quebec, like Epso and Gatineau, that are selling Liberty rebreather. I'm their instructor and their technician at the same time. And Dominic, the owner, is going to become an instructor soon to give me a hand on that. I have one dive shop in Ontario that also can sell Divesoft product, and I'm also their instructor. So by that, they can sell rebreather. So what I do in Canada, because we're not that many that can teach it and have spare parts and have the stuff to do maintenance. So I'm also a technician on the unit. So my perspective is, when you buy a unit, you want to be able to have a one-stop shop. Like, you get trained, you do your maintenance. If something happened, you need a place to fix it. So I have a bunch of spare parts about anything on the unit. I have a toolbox of spare parts, and I'm acting as the technician where to go to if unit breaks. So no downtime. People bring their stuff. Here's my problem. I have the spare part. I fix it. They go back and dive again.
So no downtime. That's the main concern.
Yeah, yeah, when we do the technician on it, we do all the other products, the freedoms and the analyzers as well. So
Yeah, we have one question here from West Coast Side now. How do you like the onboard
Alan.
analyzer, and how can it be used prior to and during a dive? Well, that's a very nice feature, I got to admit, because when you have the helium cells and the O2 cells in the head, and you're able to calibrate both of them, oxygen cell with oxygen and helium cells with air, when everything is in there, what is missing with having a gas analyzer, right? So everything is already in the head. And the people who designed the unit thought about it, says, hey, let's put a feature on the handset so you can set it up as a gas analyzer.
Right.
So finish calibrating your O2 cells, you just move it from the head, and then you can analyze whatever gas you have, and you go on your handset and pass in gas analyzer mode. Then now you have O2 content.
You say you're dealing with it right there.
And it's the same display as a gas analyzer, same thing. So it's pretty amazing. If you don't have this expensive trimix analyzer in the field, or if it breaks, now you have a backup that comes with the unit. It's in there.
Yeah.
It's built in.
The head's an analyzer.
Yeah, it's a very nice feature. Very nice.
Yeah, it's a great factor, especially with and then with the helium sensors, they're solid state, and so they don't need replacement, and so you just got to take good care of them, right? Just like everything else.
Exactly, good care of them. Meaning you need to have the fan on top of your. It's made for that. I mean, when you buy the rebreather, you buy the little drying fan. You put them on top. It dries like easy. No moisture. So always ready to dive the next day, no downtime. But if you don't care of that, it's like anything else in diving business. If you don't take care of your gear, it's not going to take care of you, right?
Right. I like to tell it that it's like you have to treat it like it's alive, you know?
Exactly.
Lots of tender love and care.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you're underwater, it's not the good time to have troubleshoot stuff. That's what happens on the surface, right?
Right. Yeah. We save the problems for the surface.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like there's an exploding community of technical divers and rebreather divers in Canada and the East Coast in Canada. And I know we have some new friends in Nova Scotia too. And so, can you talk a little bit about the growth of the technical diving there and where the community is going to go?
Well, in terms of technical community, we seem to have two schools of thought. We have the old school divers that are still diving with their double tanks, air dives or nitrox dives and stage bottle and all that. That's one category. And the other category that are a little bit younger, have more money because they have good jobs and everything. They look at it and says, well, that's heavy, takes more gas, helium is expensive. Why don't we go in technical diving but using other tools? So now,
there's the two different avenues.
Yes, exactly. I think this is why we're seeing more and more, because one thing, on one side you have price of the unit that are coming lower a little bit, and then you have training that is more available, and then you have more instructor on the market. So everything becomes available for that class of people. But for people that are more old school style and they don't have any specific mission that would require a CCR or anything, nothing wrong with going with doubles and air tanks and whatever. I mean, it's all mission specific, right?
Well, I mean, that, you can get into a rabbit hole of a discussion with that, because we're seeing more and more factors applied with gas density, it being a limiting factor, and, moving the amount of gas. Now they're looking at, what is it? Like 100 feet should reevaluate air to just be the maximum operating depth because of the density to 100 feet. And so, well, enough talking. When are we going to go jump in the water? I know we're all dying here, so that's why we just have to be thinking and talking about diving. Yeah,
that's a good topic. I mean, we could talk forever about what's going on in trimix diving and comparing open circuit and closed circuit. Yes, now we have fact about gas density. There's a threshold between 5.2 and 6.2 in which we should keep our gas density in order to keep our work of breathing a little lower. That's all nice stuff that now we have fact to rely on instead of just opinion. I rely on facts anytime instead of opinion, right? We can have opinion on everything, but if you have fact and you have testing that have been done, I'm thinking about NEDU, Navy Experimental Diving Unit. Those guys did a lot of freaking research, and Simon Mitchell and Pete Mesley and all that guys, they all did the works for us before, but now we have report on which we can rely, and that is fact. It's not opinion. So when you have fact, it's easy to change your behavior. And I'm just looking back like 5, 6, 7 years ago, I was not teaching trimix the same way as I'm teaching today, because fact were not there back in the days. Now we have a whole bunch of stuff like that gas density thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I in a couple of weeks, I'm going to have a guest, Michael Menduno, and we're going to be, he's been sending me a lot of stuff from the early days of technical diving, and I'm really excited to talk about kind of the future and get into some of those topics too, because it's a hot button topic where we've got better tools now, and we've got better things that we can apply knowledge wise. And so
absolutely, that's another question by Mr. Martinez. Stephan, can you talk about bailout CCR? Yeah, we're seeing more and more of that. But the thing is it's one more tool in the toolbox, right? Having two rebreather is good. One rebreather is fine. Two is better. But how about the type of diving you're doing? If you're doing this like 2-3 times a year, you're not going to be sharp on your edge and sharp on your skills and being on your X all the time. That's for sure. So you need a lot of training to make sure that you use them in a safe manner. I mean, bringing a side mount rebreather as a bailout for my back mount rebreather instead of bringing a pair of aluminum 80s, I don't see a big pros on that. But if you're doing push in deep dives in warmer water, because cold water, we have our limits, right? Even with undergarment, you're limited by the time of the battery. And what if the battery died in the middle of your dive? Nothing good in going cold water deco when you have been in deep water, warm body. So that's not good at all. So that's all things that you take into consideration. And I think we're going to see more and more of CCR bailout rebreather, but you still have to take in consideration that that's a lot of logistic to handle underwater. So you need a lot more hours in the water, being sharp on your skills. And if something goes wrong with one unit, you jump on the other one, you forget to do something, you flood your loop. Now what? You have one bad rebreather on your back and one flooded on your side. So there is some risk doing this, but I think with training and hours and time and discipline, it's going to take more and more market.
Yeah, I imagine it's going to be a more collaborative training, because it's such at a fringe level to be using a dual rebreather, is that a lot of the people that are going to be writing the training of it, it's like you're at the point where if you need to go get certified to use a bailout rebreather, it's like you probably shouldn't be using it. It's like we're at such an experimental. It's like almost how side mount used to be. Yeah, where like, you want to it's got an application to it. You're not going to be 10,000 feet in the back of a cave, or it's not for the casual diver at all. So
no, absolutely. But I see people doing exploration in caves. They're going like 10, 12, 13 inside. I can see that as a very good tool for them, because now you have redundancy on one side, and you have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of scrubber time that you can use back and forth. If you're using it as a backup, warm water, not too deep, you're in shallow caves, you can have a whole bunch of new planning that you can do with those tools. But again, just another tool in the toolbox that you need to be trained on and be disciplined on and be watching what you're doing and putting the hours to make sure that if something happened, you can get out of there alive without asking anybody else to bring the body back, right?
Yeah, but besides risking, people to come and get you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, great. Well, I think we covered kind of a lot on this chat today. So, if you have, I don't know if you have any questions or like if there's anybody else, any other questions.
I haven't
No,
seen. I tried to answer the one I saw on the screen, but I don't.
Mhm.
I don't see nothing more. No more question. That says.
Well, great. Yeah, we'll start to wrap it up. So, well, thank you very much, Stephan. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for telling us some of those interesting stories, the adventures on the river, right?
Yeah,
And so,
no problem at all. Anytime. You want to see us
well,
soon, hopefully.
yeah, we'll hope to see you soon. All right, once everything gets back to normal, we'll
Yes,
go diving.
yes.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much.